Good afternoon, distinguished guests, incubators and instructors, Jonathan and Mr. Kelvin, and also good candidate from the New Zealand Trade Enterprise. On behalf of the Solar Park Thailand, we would like to convey our warm welcome to the distinguished instructor from the New Zealand to kindly join the workshop with us. And this is the first time that we have the activity with the New Zealand Trade Enterprise and have a good instructor to give the information and fruitful information that I hope that will be beneficial for everybody here. The program that will significantly develop the learning and encouraging the transition in preparing the eligible incubatee to be the efficiency ICT entrepreneur in the near future. In order to not waste the time and all of you can benefit for this workshop, I would pass this stage to the MC to continue the programs. And okay, thank you.
This program today will be the mandatory class provided to two sessions. The first, there will be two seminars undertaken the title of how to prepare to be attracted to venture capitalists, and another one is how to be sustainably successful ICT entrepreneur in globalization. The highlight of this seminar is the workshop that will divide into many groups to conduct the best practice to the instructor's assignment. We have the honor to introduce the distinguished instructor from New Zealand. First is Mr. Jonathan Kirkpatrick. He has been the CEO of AUT Technology Park since 2002. He graduated in Bachelor of Theology, University of London, and got the MBA from University of Otago. He has expertise of the new ventures and innovation. He was instrumental in the funding of New Zealand Business Incubator Association, or we call Incubator New Zealand, and has been its chair for the past year. Then I would like to introduce another instructor, Mr. Kelvin Playo. He's have the experience of 15 years business and commercial management experience. He has a master's degree in marketing and international business from University of Auckland, New Zealand. Then he has 7 years territory management and 3 years university commercialization and business development. So then I would like to invite our instructors to deliver his presentation. Please welcome Mr. Jonathan.
Thank you very much. We're delighted to be here. I'm just going to briefly introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me and what we're going to do, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Kevin, who's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and then together we'll spend a bit of time working through the material that we've brought and maybe material that bubbles up from the group. I do want this to be an interactive process today. You haven't come into the presence of some great world experts and you simply sit at our feet and absorb everything we say. We want you to come up with your own thoughts, and we have lots to learn as well as you do, and we know that. So we do want to facilitate a very interactive session this afternoon. As you know, my name's Jonathan, and I run the AUT Technology Park in New Zealand. That's the homepage on our website, and you can see that I really am me because there's a photograph there, and this is a picture of our buildings. I'll say a little bit about buildings later. They're the scourge of our life, buildings always. But you can see it's a decent looking building amongst some trees and some shrubbery, about halfway between Auckland City and the airport in New Zealand. And we've got some stuff going on. This is just the home. This wasn't prepared for you. This is just the homepage on our website. As you can see there, we've got activities going on. At the Technology Park, we have a mixture of university research, commercial companies, and startup companies within a business incubator. And then a number of university people who float in and out, usually university researchers who are located elsewhere in the university, but come to the Technology Park so they can get on with some research without being bothered by telephones and people knocking on their door. We're a bit of a safe haven for some of those people. We are a university-owned technology park. We are 6 years old. We opened our doors in January 2001, so we're very new. We're also the first university technology park in New Zealand, so we're very new at it. The incubation industry in New Zealand is a new industry. It's only about 6 years old. We were one of the first, and as I say, we're 6 years old. We are also one of the most successful, and incubation in New Zealand has been very successful, and I'll tell you a little bit as we go along about that. So that's who I am. I'm the person lucky enough and privileged enough to be running this particular outfit. My colleague, Kevin, works alongside me. He has an office almost as big as mine, he was just saying, in the same building. I house Kevin. He's another bit of the technology park, but I'm not his boss. He and I work alongside each other, and he is responsible for commercialisation throughout the university, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Tell us who you are.
Somebody up. Kia ora. My name is Kevin Pryor. You got that right? Oh, that's right. As Jonathan said, my particular role in the university is around research commercialisation, and it's about identifying within the university key technologies that the university researchers have been working on, and bringing those technologies up to a stage where we might attract commercial investments to take those particular technologies to market. So that's one part of my position, is actually looking within the university to try and identify these technologies. We also work very closely with Jonathan and the technology part with his incubator companies in terms of bringing some of our key research capability to some of our top researchers in their particular areas, and helping the incubator company technologies out to take them to new levels. A lot of the incubator companies that Jonathan will be talking to you about come in with the technology that's probably most basic level. So we add research capability from the university to take it to new levels and make it more attractive for investment by adding that research capability to those technologies. So, kia ora, thank you very much. You're probably wondering sort of my complexion. I'm a bit darker than what Jonathan is. I'm a Māori from New Zealand. We are the equivalent, I think I was in Malaysia, and they have Ungipucha, which is the Prince of the Soul, and Tangata Whenua, which is the people of the land, or the natives of New Zealand. And so that's my background. Quite often, as I've travelled around the world, I've been stationed for Arab, Indian, American Indian, so it actually becomes quite handy. I just keep my mouth shut, the locals sort of taking in other things. So that's my background for who I am, and I'm here basically to help Jonathan facilitate the session today, so I'm looking forward to interacting with everyone today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. In the programme for this afternoon, it looks quite well organised and formal, and it is certainly well organised, but I do want to use the time as best we can for all of us. So I want to be very flexible with the time. We've got time together, and I want us to use that creatively and make this our space for some mutual sharing and learning. So although we've got certain times down for presentation and then break and then workshop, we'll treat the time as our own and use it as we need to. We won't be bound too much by the clock, then we will certainly be able to finish on time. I'm going to talk to you about those two topics out of my experience, those two topics that I was given. One is being attractive to an investor. How can an early stage company be attractive to an external investor, and what sort of investor and why? So I do want to talk about that. I will also talk a bit about getting offshore. Globalization is the buzzword at the moment. Globalization comes a long way after your first foray into offshore markets. World domination is a long way off for most of us. But certainly there's no reason why we shouldn't get into offshore markets from early stages. And in New Zealand that's particularly important. New Zealand is a very small country. Only 4 million people in the whole country. So any company wanting to grow has to get into offshore markets very quickly. Because if everybody in New Zealand buys one of whatever it is, you've sold 4 million. Big deal. That's not going to make you a big company, whatever it is you're selling. So we are very focused on getting our companies offshore. Getting our companies offshore as quickly as possible. And I'll talk a bit about that. But before I do that, and so that you can see where I'm coming from, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the way that we incubate companies first, because it does relate to the way that we do that. It relates to the way that we attract investment, and we prepare our companies to be attractive to investors, and relates also to how we help them to get offshore. So just bear with me a little bit, because some of the things I'm going to say about business incubation you'll know already and be very familiar with. Some of them may be a little bit different, but just so that you can see where we're coming from. Technology incubation. Incubation is a tool of economic growth. That's really what it's for. From our point of view, we're about economic transformation. New Zealand is a country which is changing very quickly, and we need to change very quickly. We used to grow our economy by selling sheep, either dead or alive, or bits of sheep. And wool and meat were the prime products of New Zealand, and they're still very important. Dairying is now also very important. Agricultural economy has been the backbone of New Zealand, but it's changing. And it's changing very quickly. And New Zealand has a history of producing innovative technology. It does not have a particularly good history of commercialising that. And it has an even worse history at letting people know that the commercialisation that was done by New Zealanders. So there are in fact lots of technologies out there in the world that were produced by New Zealanders, which many people take for granted, which people often don't realise were produced by New Zealanders. You'll all have heard of Lord Rutherford. Anybody not heard of Lord Rutherford, who was the first man to split the atom? He was a Kiwi. He was a New Zealander, but most people don't know that. He did it in London, of course, or I think Cambridge, actually. But he was a New Zealander. There are many New Zealanders who've been eminent scientists and researchers who've done lots of interesting things, but generally aren't known about as being New Zealanders. I won't give you a whole list of them, but just so you can get a flavour of our culture. Business incubation accelerates company growth. And that's what we're about. We are about accelerating growth. We are not about helping companies to survive. Incubator graduates, that is companies that leave a business incubator, they create jobs and wealth. These are fast-track, high-technology, high-growth companies. And because they're growing wealth, they revitalise communities. They're commercialising new technology all the time, and that strengthens local and national economies. So we are about making money, be in no doubt about that. That is what we are in the business of doing. We're doing it by developing technology, commercialising that, getting technology to market, making people rich, individuals, and the local and national economy likewise growing in wealth. Technology incubation provides entrepreneurs and startup companies with expertise, tools, networks and environments, all those things that they need to make their ventures successful. You know that. You're engaged in that. We look for success by looking for significant and rapid growth. That is our measure of success, company growth. And that is what is crucial to us. An important tool of economic development, I've already said that, and there are about 3,000 of these business incubators in various parts of the world. So we did not invent this thing. Now you'll be familiar with all of these things. These are things that we do to our companies, that we apply to our companies. They are in various ways important or not so important to our companies. There's no way of knowing right from the beginning what a company is going to need. But these are the sort of things that we have on our shelf. These are like the ingredients in the kitchen cupboard. And we apply these ingredients as they are needed by a company. You imagine what's in your kitchen cupboard. You've got all sorts of things. All sorts of things I wouldn't have in my kitchen cupboard, I'm sure. And you can use those ingredients in a number of ways to produce all sorts of different kinds of food. And you apply those as necessary. So these are the resources that we have. And these are all important, but some of them are really important. This is the least important, providing office space. It's often at the top of a list of a business incubator. What do? We provide cheap office space. This is the least important thing. You can, in fact, run a startup business out of your back bedroom or your back of your garage. You can do that. Providing office space is not so important. Networking is up here as well. That's not so important. It's important that the incubator does it, so the incubator can put our companies in touch with the people that they need to be in touch with. But networking is actually quite a resource-hungry, time-hungry activity for startup businesses. And most of our startup businesses are run by technically able people who are natural introverts, and they do not network particularly well. All those other things are really important, and in particular deal brokering. Most of our companies don't understand how to do a deal, and they need to have their hand held, sometimes rather tightly, as they broker deals. And all those other things up there. IP consultation, IP protection, absolutely crucial, intellectual property. Getting the company structure sorted out, determining what the technology is and how we're going to turn it into a product that somebody wants to buy. So those are the things that we apply to our companies, depending upon what the product is, what the technology is, and the capability of the people who are running the company. Incubator may not be a helpful term. It's not actually a word that I like, but it's a word that we have to use because it's used internationally. In order that people can know what we're talking about, we have to use the word. We are not an incubator. As many people think of an incubator, they think of protecting something which is fragile. We are not an incubator in the hospital sense. The hospital sense where you take something newborn like a baby, which might be underweight and not too well, and you care for it to make it sure that it survives. We are not about doing that with our companies. That is not the sort of incubator that we are at all. We are not about looking after the sick. We are about accelerating the growth of the healthy. So we're an incubator in the horticultural sense, where you take a young plant, like a young tree, which is strong and healthy and vigorous, and you put it in an environment where it will grow even more quickly than it would outside. So in a sense, we're about accelerating business. We're a business accelerator as well as an incubator. But the words will get a bit meaningless after a while. But you can see that that's what we're about. We're not helping the weak. We want to help the weak, but if the weak aren't going to get strong quickly, then maybe for a business, it's right that they go under. It's okay for a company to fail, depending on why it fails. If it fails because the market isn't there, or because the finance isn't there, then it's okay. Much better that the entrepreneur puts it down, walks away, gets on with something else. Look after growth, survival will look after itself. I'm constantly saying that as I talk about incubation. We are not about company survival. If you focus hard on growth, get your company to grow as quickly as it can, you don't have to worry about surviving. Surviving will just happen naturally. High growth. Company growth grows wealth. Is there any startup here who doesn't want to be rich? Great. I want you to want to be rich. It's really important that you want to be rich. And you want to add value to other people too. There's nothing wrong about making money. You're doing it honestly, you're doing it by developing technology and getting it to market. Nothing wrong with that at all, because we all benefit from that. We all carry around in our pockets technology that someone else has developed and got to market, and I'll be grateful for the fact that we do it. It's really crucial to grow quickly a technology company because the window of opportunity for getting new technologies to market is very small. Technology advance is getting quicker all the time, and there's no good turning up to a market with your perfect pager when everyone else has had a cell phone for the last 5 years. Who carries a pager now? Nobody. Anybody remember pagers? You do. Okay. Nobody bothers with them now. Maybe the same platform technology actually that's gone into cell phones. Certainly they're related. But you can see how a window of opportunity for that particular product came and went. And so it will be with other technologies. So the window is small. So that's why it's important to get to market quickly and to get as hard to market as you can in order to accelerate that growth. And I'll talk a bit more about products and technology in a minute. Aim high and achieve high. You should want your company to be the best. You should want, if not world domination, to make your mark in technology advancement on the world. If you aim for anything less than the best, you can be sure that you will achieve less than the best. Nobody enters the Olympic Games to get a silver medal. There's nothing wrong with winning a silver medal. It's an honourable thing and a thing to be proud of. But nobody goes looking for second place. They go looking to be the best. And if they get a silver medal, that's fantastic. We'll all applaud them because we couldn't do it. But you've got to aim high if you're going to achieve at all. Commercialisation. A company is more than one product. Who here has a company with just one product? Nobody. Nobody? Really? That's good. I've got companies in my incubator that have only got one product. They will have more by the time they leave. Somebody's smiling, but that's generally quite honest. They will have more, and they need to have more. So we're about identifying platform technologies that will become a series of products. We're looking for a technology which can have new generations of product following on and on and on to keep the income stream going. Protecting intellectual property is crucial. You have to have intellectual property which can be defined, identified, and protected in law. Whether or not you can afford to sue somebody if they violate your intellectual property rights is another matter. But it has to be there. You have to have something which is your own, and you have to be able to protect that. Usually by patenting, or sometimes, of course, software is protected by copyright law. I'm not quite sure, in fact I didn't know very little indeed about intellectual property law in Thailand, but I know that there are international agreements, and I imagine that there will be some overlaps between IP law in New Zealand and here in Thailand. So when you've done all that, you might well choose to license the technology. Some people should not run companies. That's Kevin's department. He works with academics who are brilliant at producing new technologies, but very rarely any good at running companies. So they shouldn't be allowed to. And it may be that you license the technology. You sell it to somebody else, in effect. Maybe you sell it to them every 2 or 3 years, or indeed every year. You resell it to them in a new, improved form. There's nothing wrong with that. License agreements are fine and they can produce a good income stream. Or you may produce a company around one or more technologies. You're all aware of the product life cycle, I hope. Does anybody not know about the product life cycle? We've all done your commerce degree, perhaps, and you understand that. The shape of the product life cycle varies depending on markets, depending on technology, on product, on a whole variety of things. But the basic shape is always the same. We're looking at a period of accelerated growth for new technology going to market. Inevitably, it will peak, it may plateau, and it will begin to die away. That happens with technologies. It's like the laws of the universe, like gravity. What goes up must come down, as we say, and it does that. There are a few commodities out there that does not happen with, and I imagine in Thailand it's probably something like rice. If you're a rice producer, you probably haven't got here because the demand for your commodity is still rising. There are some commodities out there which break this particular rule, and they're things that we take for granted. We're always going to need clean water, for example. While human beings are dominating this planet, we're always going to need clean water, and as there's increasingly a world shortage of that, I doubt that the life cycle has got anywhere near here for clean water. But by and large, for technology, that is what happens. And if you have a company based on one product, that is what will happen to your company. It may look absolutely fantastic and the world's your oyster, and this may be taking some time, you may be growing very quickly, and you may think it's absolutely fabulous, and you're about to get very rich, and you've got a good stream of income, and you've got employees, but you will peak and you will die. It will happen. So what we're looking for is something more like that. We're looking for one product after another. We know that they will peak. If you have a platform technology which can produce one product after another, you will not only retain your position in a market, but you will increase your position in a market, and the closer you can bring these bars together, the better. Then the platform technology will continue to rise. So imagine the mobile phone. It's basically the same technology that it was when it first came out. You remember how they came out? They were about the size of a house brick, and you used to have it in a bag all of its own and carry the darn thing around and hold it up to your ear like this. Now they're tiny. I think I've had about 6 or 7 mobile phones in the last 5 years. I keep buying the same technology, but one product after another makes me keep buying that. I have to have one that's another colour, or I have to have a better camera on my cell phone. Why don't we need cameras on cell phones? I don't know, but we do. They have to be better. So the technology has improved. It's the same basic technology, but one product after another, keeping that technology in the market and avoiding this happening to your company. So you keep that going. This model also works with brands. If you imagine a brand of car, one model after another, you're actually still buying the internal combustion engine, but nobody goes out to buy that. Nobody goes out to buy a technology. They buy a product based on the technology. The product enwraps the technology and you buy the product. So we keep buying the same technology as we have one product after another. And one product ideally is being developed while the other one is doing really well in the market, and maybe if you bring them closer together, a large company might have a number of products being developed and a number already in the market. So, going global. That's a grand title. Company growth is crucial to getting offshore. You cannot get offshore if you're not growing, and economic growth arises from that for localities and for nations. Getting offshore, going global, requires networks and contacts. It's very, very difficult to do it alone. I would say it's impossible to do it alone. It's very, very rare that a startup company can actually do very much successful alone. We usually need to do it in tandem with other people, and that's why networking is important on the part of the incubator, so that they know who to put you as a startup in touch with. So getting offshore also requires your leveraging of other people who've already been there and done it. Market awareness is absolutely crucial. You cannot go to a new market in a new country, even if it's a next door country, and expect to do any good at all if you don't understand that market. So you have to do your homework. Like all things, preparation is absolutely crucial. You do have to understand your market, and the best way to do that is to talk to people who are already in it. One of the ways that we do that is by accessing a whole raft of New Zealand expatriates in other parts of the world. We find that people like to be asked for help. They like to have other people come knocking at their door. They like entrepreneurs to come looking for help. So there are a large number of Kiwis in various countries in the world who are already working in technology companies and who can provide us with a lot of information about what it takes to get there. It's a way of making a bit of a soft landing for a company. We, as an incubator, constantly develop our networks and our linkages with people in offshore markets. We do it through government agencies. We have a government agency that Thailand here works for, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, and they have offices in various countries around the world and help companies break into new markets offshore. Distribution channels and resellers are by and large what we're looking for. Sometimes we're also looking for R&D partners to help develop technology. Sometimes we're looking for investment. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But by and large, we're looking for distribution channels and we're looking for people who will resell. People to whom we can add value. If we've got product A and they've got product B, put them together and everybody will benefit. So they may look like potential competitors, but today's competitor is tomorrow's collaboration partner. So competitors are to be taken seriously and to be courted gently. They are important to us. By and large, that's what we're looking for. People who we can tandem with, people who are already in the market, people who are bigger than us, who are already there, to whom we can add some value, and then when they turn $1, we make $1 too. Local product development and support is very important, because if you're going to sell product offshore, there has to be some way of supporting your customers. Customers are going to ask you about that. Particularly if you've got software, if you've got a technology, and you want other people to buy it offshore, how's it going to be supported? How are they going to be looked after as customers? You can't be everywhere at once, but if you've got partners who will work with you, you can again leverage off their presence. You may be looking for manufacturing capability. That's important for us in New Zealand, because manufacturing anything in New Zealand is generally quite difficult and quite expensive. It can often be done offshore, product production. We have one company which has an organic pesticide. They're looking to manufacture that in China. China's also going to be the first market. It's a good example because production and manufacture need to be close together. We're talking about producing fairly small quantities of concentrated liquid product which can be then diluted, sprayed on crops and will kill bugs without polluting the atmosphere and without hurting the people who will eat it. So that's an example of finding a market, also finding investment and product capability, manufacturing capability offshore, very important. Offshore investment close to markets. They say that capital doesn't travel, and it's often said that capital doesn't travel. It doesn't tend not to travel very far, and not always very often. Investors want to see where their investment is and how it's progressing, how the company is doing. You're more likely to get offshore investment if you have some capability offshore where the investors are. So all those things are very important, and we need to leverage all the links that we've got to get help for our startup companies. When we're getting offshore, it's important to be clear about what you're about. You need to be able to articulate very well what you're about. It's pointless getting on a plane and going somewhere if you then cannot articulate clearly what it is you have to offer and what it is you're looking for. We are looking to export products, not companies. And I guess that's the same for you. I imagine that's the same for you. Often in other countries, particularly when we go to various parts of Asia, we find that people are very happy to listen to what we say if the company will move to where they are. Well, maybe we need to move something, but because we're about growing our own economy, we're looking to retain the intellectual property at home. Maybe there will be some subsidiary in another country, and we've got one of our alumni has a subsidiary now in Singapore, where we have an office. And that subsidiary does all sorts of activity and has gained its own investment, but the intellectual property still resides in New Zealand. Rehearse your value proposition. Be able to speak clearly, coherently and briefly about what it is you've got to offer. We talk about elevator pitch. You know the old thing about you get in a lift with somebody who you think might be helpful, and you've got, a minute maybe at the most in a tall building to articulate what it is you want to say in such a way that they'll call you later when you've passed on your business card. So you need to be able to articulate very clearly and concisely what it is you have to offer and what you're looking for. SWOT analysis is very important. You use SWOT, everybody knows what I'm talking about? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Very important when we're looking at offshore markets. A very good way of helping you to understand who you are and how you might come across to other people. Because you need to form a strategy that will play to your strengths and minimise your weaknesses. There will be weaknesses that you have, which you can do nothing about. So you need to find a strategy of making them irrelevant as possible, and play to your strengths. Opportunities and threats are outside your control. You can do nothing about them. They're external to you, and they're out there in the marketplace. So you need to seize the opportunities and you need to avoid the threats. So you need a good strategy and you need to understand who you are and not just how you see yourself, how you see your own company, but how other people see you. When we're getting offshore, it's very important to cluster with others. Very difficult to do it alone. If you're a small startup company, however good your technology, however clever it is, and however strong the market need, it's very, very difficult to go it alone. So we always take our companies in groups when we're going offshore. I say always, 99% of the time, we take them in groups. And we do it through trade missions. Maybe we gather other companies from our technology park who've got similar technology, who might want to talk to similar people, and we take them as a group, maybe 2, 3 or 4, or maybe we cluster with other people outside our technology park, also from our country, from New Zealand, and we look at going as part of a bigger group in order that they can all leverage off one another. A group of high-quality startup companies looks much more attractive to an offshore developer or investor or whatever if they come as a group. And if they may have their own individual spin, but if they actually look like a cohesive group and they can add value to one another, a much more attractive proposition. So together, people are much stronger than individually and they look much better. When we're going offshore, to get offshore, you need to plan carefully and you need to get there. You need to get into people's face. There's so much you can do by email and pointing people to your website and talking to them on the telephone, but ultimately there is still no substitute for physically being in somebody's presence. So you do need to get in front of people when you're going offshore. Find partners for leverage, talk to them about that. And you need to be prepared to keep going back. It's no good appearing in a foreign country, you've got something to sell, you're looking for people to help you sell it, you're looking for people to help you develop your technology, to produce product generation after generation. No good doing that if you think you can do it by going once. You need to keep going back. It is an investment, it costs money. You will be spending money long before you get anything back, so it is an investment in the future of your company. And so before you do it, you need to be sure that you'll be able to see the process through. Otherwise, you might well waste money at the beginning. You're building relationships. Offshore business is invariably done through building relationships with people, and you need to show that you're serious. You need to show that you've thought of the pitfalls for the customer. Why would they buy from you? If you're a small company going offshore, why would they bother to buy from you if they could buy something from somebody closer at home in whom they might have more confidence, in whom they might already have heard? See yourselves as they see you and show that you're serious about what you claim. I want to talk a bit about raising capital, and I've done the export. I've talked a little bit about export first because it is very difficult to get into exports, I think, without raising capital. Very rarely can it be done. But I'm happy just to stop there for a moment and take any questions or any comments that you might have about the stuff I said about getting offshore. Anybody have anything they want to say to that? You don't have to, but you might. Have you disagreed? Yes, okay.
Can you give us some case study about going offshore and get venture capital?
Yes, we'll be looking at that in a little while. Yeah, we do have some examples of that.
You mentioned a little bit about how small the domestic market of New Zealand is. Do you think it is necessary or it is not necessary for technology companies to capture some portion of the domestic market before going offshore?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do we need to capture some portion of the domestic market before going offshore? I would say that we don't. We use our domestic, sometimes we do, but we don't need to. Sometimes we use our domestic market really for beta testing, for product testing, and for not very much more. And then we're looking offshore straight away. The domestic market is so small in New Zealand, it can almost be, not irrelevant, but it can be an awful lot of work for not much gain. So it is important for us to use, we need to use people that are physically located near us. We've got one example of a product which is a medical device, a non-invasive medical device. and they have used the domestic market, hospitals and researchers in hospitals, to test their product. But in fact, their market is in the USA because there's no money in medicine in New Zealand. They've got a product which forms part of a suite of other products which works together to do a number of things. It's a delightful product, really, really good. But the money for that is in America, where there's real research money in medicine, where the product can really take off. So they've used local hospitals and local medical researchers and our local medical school in Auckland. They've used that for testing the product, for understanding how it works, what its problems are, coming back with generation after generation of prototype. We're on about their 5th prototype at the moment. But in fact, their real market is in the US.
In general, the company in New Zealand, does it go outside to get a customer, or you have a channel that foreign country can contact you directly and get offshore market?
We usually have to go there. It's very difficult to you have to be fairly aggressive about it and fairly energetic about it. If we sat and wait for the rest of the world to notice us, they never would. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why New Zealand's such a wonderful place to live, because most of the world doesn't even know it's there. But there are disadvantages with that, and when you're trying to sell product, it's really important that we get out there.
So as you mentioned, you guys go through the office center in other countries to minimize it. Like for Thailand itself, to go in foreign countries is a very high expense compared to our living expense here in Thailand. So that is a bit of difficulties of opening up new markets. So what is your suggestions on active marketing in this area?
Again, maybe the use of strategic partners, finding people who will understand that you have a value proposition for them, another company who's already in a market, who might be able to act as a reseller for you. Maybe you can tandem with them, or maybe they can sell your product in tandem with their product and add value to their customers, make more money for themselves, and also make some money for you. I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but I accept that it's an issue. It is an issue for us too. Getting offshore is difficult for us because we're a long way from anywhere else. It means that airfares anywhere cost quite a lot of money, and that it takes a lot of time, and there are sometimes huge cultural differences between our nearest neighbours, which is generally Asia. We don't really count Australia, we think of that as an extension of New Zealand. But Asia are really our nearest neighbours, and of course the cultural gap between us and Asian countries is huge. So there are big barriers for us too. We need people who can help us, the people who are already there. And maybe your incubator has some contacts. Maybe your incubator will work to look for contacts, to make contacts, to keep those contacts alive, so that when there is a company from your incubator looking to get offshore or thinking that it will get offshore at some point in the future, they'll have some point to go to. You will not do it alone, I doubt.
What is your biggest market, offshore market, like US? China?
Big markets in the US for some things, big markets in Europe for some things, but China generally is increasingly coming up as a very attractive market. There's quite a lot of money in China together. I'll talk a little bit about raising capital. There are many forms of investment in any startup company, but two main categories. Angel investors. Now, you'll all have heard of the 3 Fs that we talk about, friends, family and fools. They're the people who back you when you've got nothing more than a good idea. Angel investors are people who come in after that. Not every company goes for angel investors, not every company needs angel investors, but most of our companies do. These are generally individual people of high net worth themselves. Typically in New Zealand, they're people who've built a company. They probably sold that company. They've ring-fenced their own security. We talk about the 3 Bs, the boat, the batch, and the BMW. They've got a decent car, they've got a nice house, they've got a holiday home. The batch is a holiday home, and they ring-fence their own personal security, and then they have money that they can do something else with. They don't play with it, but they will invest it in things in which they're particularly interested, and it's usually the sort of company which might relate to their own skill set. So they often invest quite emotionally, angels. Very difficult to know what they're going to invest in. I've seen angels turn their nose up at things that I thought looked really attractive and thought how strange that was. And I've seen them invest in things that I wouldn't have gone anywhere near. Well, I don't have any money, so who am I to judge anyway? But they will often make an emotional investment as well as a financial investment. They're often looking to help grow entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's as daft as seeing themselves reflected in somebody 20 years, 30 years younger than them, and they see themselves as they were all those years ago, and they want to help somebody grow their company. They can invest at any time, because these are people, by and large, who are spending a lot of time on the golf course. They can invest at any time in your company, and will do so. Usually fairly small amounts of money, and often not in $1, often in little bits. They might often drip feed investment into a company. And generally in New Zealand, and it will be different here maybe, but it's usually under about $250,000. And sometimes much, much smaller amounts. It might be $20,000 and then another $20,000 3 months later. It can vary tremendously according to the needs of the company. Angel investors will often invariably seek to add their own expertise to a company. They're very unlikely to give you money and then sit back and wait for you to do something with it. They will want to be involved. They'll want to be hands-on and have a great deal of control over what you do. Maybe not total control, but they will want to invest in you as a person as well as in the company. I've said they may probably want to control the company. In the very early stages, if they're a little bit uncertain, they might give you a little bit of money and then be quite directive as to what you should do with it. They are not driven solely by the promise of a financial return, but they do need to make a financial return. If they're investing in entrepreneurs and in early stage companies, they will need to make a financial return at some point so they can do it again. These are people who enjoy doing it, who enjoy helping companies to grow, and they know that they won't always make a killing. They know that some of the money they invest will go bad on them. But they do need to get a return sometimes in order that they can keep doing it. Otherwise, they'll find they can't spend as much time on the golf course as they hoped. So they may not be driven entirely by that need, but it is there. Venture capital is a different animal, a very different animal. We've got some VCs sitting in the room, and so I quake a little bit when I talk about VCs, because these people know much more about it than I do. They are not investing their own money, they're investing other people's money, and that's an absolutely crucial difference, because it puts a completely different slant on the way that they go about their investment. They are driven by the promise of making a financial return. They're growing other people's money, and if they can't do that, they will go out of business. So they are driven, unlike the angel, who may well want to emotionally invest in the company and the entrepreneur and help them to grow. VCs are driven by getting a financial return. A fund is only open for a few months, maybe quite a few months, but for a period of its life cycle. And an investment fund has a life cycle, and they will not always have money to invest. They may well have money set aside that they know they're going to have to follow on invest in earlier investments. They may have kept money on one side because to make the first investment good, they know they're going to have to invest again a year or two later. So they won't always have money. They might be a very good VC, but the fact that they don't invest in you doesn't mean they don't like you. It just means that they haven't got any money available at that particular stage of the life cycle of their fund. Like angels, they will seek to add value to your company because they're safeguarding their investment. Not because they're interested in you, by and large. They're not bad people, he says. But because they're wanting to safeguard their investment. There's nothing wrong with that. Remember, it's other people's money that they're investing. It may be somebody's pension fund, or it may be somebody's private equity investments. Whatever it is, they have a responsibility to their own investors to grow that money. So what they do is safeguard their investment. They are very likely to want to control what goes on for that very reason, that they want to safeguard their investment. And from the moment they invest, they will be looking to get out. Whereas an angel might be fairly vague about when they'll get out, and they'll get out at the right time. A VC will be very clear that from the word go, they are looking to get out. They are looking to grow their investment, to sell it, and to get out. And that's usually by a trade sale or an IPO. They're looking to sell on their investment to somebody else. They're not going to be in there for the long haul. They will grow their investment, provide you with the money that you need to do something constructive with, and then they'll withdraw their money and their return. Now, the valley of death, that's is that a concept that you're all familiar with? I hope so. Again, the shape and the size will vary, depending on a whole range of variables. But the reality is that when you're growing a new company, particularly a high-growth company, as you grow, your expenses will rise more quickly than your revenues. So, for example, getting offshore will cost you money before ever you get a return on it. And the valley of death happens, and many good companies have failed because of the lack of investment when they needed it. This is where a VC is really useful. This is where a VC can see the potential of your company and will help you to bridge that valley of death. Other forms of investment can do that as well. Angels can be quite useful, but by and large, we're probably looking at VC. This is what can happen to a company. If it doesn't have investment, it can get down here and find that it's in real trouble. This is the number of people, but I shouldn't take too much notice about what's on the axis. The point is that this is income and this is expenditure. And as you grow your company, your expenses will outstrip your income very quickly. It's very easy for that to happen, and good companies can fail because of that. So that's what we're seeking to avoid. Okay, you can come out of it the other side, but you need something to keep you afloat while you're making this investment in your future, while you're taking on people, and people are a very expensive resource, while you're looking to get offshore. The most profitable, the most efficient unit of labour is one man working for himself. You know that in Thailand. You have many subsistence farmers in Thailand who have a piece of land they can feed themselves. The moment they employ somebody else, they've doubled their expenditure. They have not doubled their output. They have certainly not doubled their efficiency, because already they've got somebody involved in their economic activity who doesn't have the emotional investment that they have. You're already on that slippery slide. The moment there's more than one of you working for yourself. So that's why it doesn't got employees on here, but it's really expenditure. Yeah. Questions that you need to ask to be investment ready. Ask of yourselves to be able to answer them. How much do you want? You need to know how much money you want, which means that you have to have some plan for the future. Don't just pick a number out of the air. You need to know how much you want and what you're going to use it for. Investors will ask you that. How much do you want? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with my money, they're going to say, because it is their money. Do you have a plan which can demonstrate that? We talk about business plans, and business plans go in and out of favour, and in New Zealand they're kind of out of favour at the moment, because often they're based on not very much except a wish list. So it is important that you have some reason to base your understanding of what you want and what you're going to use it for on. How much is your company worth? How can you know that until you've got into a market? The reality is that, like your product, your company is worth what someone will pay you for it. And there is no other way of valuing anything. You can work out a net present value through discounted cash flows later on, and some of you will have done that at university and in other places. But until you've got significant revenues over a period of time, that's a very shaky way of working out what your company is worth. And if you haven't yet got into a market, if you haven't yet really made significant sales, very, very difficult to work out a net present value. Entrepreneurs invariably overvalue their company. They always want more and want to give away less equity. And they feel that VCs and angel investors are really mean because they want so much of the company for such a little bit, when really, this company is going to be a great high flyer. Well, it may be, but you're also a great risk. Remember the risk and return relationship. You are a huge risk. So of course investors are looking for a good return in payback for that risk, because some of the money they invest will not produce a return. So they are constantly looking for a good return, knowing that there will be some failure. So, be realistic about what your company's worth. One of the most difficult things that I have to deal with is entrepreneurs turning down good deals because they are too greedy. They overvalue their company. They believe in themselves and that's great. But anything is worth what someone else will pay for it. So one way of valuing an early stage company is how much an investor is going to give you. If your investor is going to give you 20,000 for half your company, then you've got a company worth 40,000. And if nobody else is prepared to invest, you've got no other way of valuing that company. It might sound pathetic, it might sound really, really bad, but that is what your company is worth at that moment. Maybe in 6 months' time it'll be worth quite a lot more. But be realistic about what your company is worth and understand why investors seem to devalue your company and understand why they, to you, seem to overvalue it. You seem to them to overvalue it. Are you prepared to be part of a team and may no longer be in ultimate control? Remember, investors want to look after their investment. So are you prepared to work with them? Are you prepared to work with your angel? Are you prepared to work with your VC as they seek to add value? Maybe if you're the CEO of a startup company, you'll be replaced. A VC.
Several comments, really. Just from personal experience, when they ask how much you want, a lot of times you also have to know if one of the questions that I usually ask is that enough? Because a lot of the VCs don't like to put money in and then 6 months down the road find out it's not enough to execute the business plan. So make sure that you ask for enough to execute it. The other thing about valuation, which I found a lot, was a lot of the entrepreneurs will say, well, if you give me this much money, my company is worth this much. But they also have to realize that if they didn't get that money, what is the company worth? Because the difference, the gain is what the VCs will look for. Is if they're putting in $1 today, and because of this dollar, the company is going to be worth $10, then that's their gain. But you can't value it based on the money, the new money coming in.
Keep the microphone. Yeah, thank you. That's great. So you hear from the real thing. Work with your investors. Work as part of a team. If you're not prepared to do that, and you need to be in control, then you probably won't get investment, and you're probably not going to grow your company. If you're looking to be a lifestyler, you're probably not really an entrepreneur. Maybe you're somebody who wants to be self-employed. And the difference between being an entrepreneur and being self-employed is great, but they're often mixed up. They're often confused. So be clear, are you an entrepreneur or are you someone who simply wants to be self-employed? If you want to grow your own little company and be in control of it, and maybe have a few customers and quite a good income, that's fine, nothing wrong with that, it's great. But that doesn't make you an entrepreneur. That makes you somebody who wants to be self-employed. Are you prepared to settle for a small part of something big rather than 100% of something small? It's the same question. You might well end up with a very small part of your company, a very small part. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll be kept on as the chief technical officer and you'll have forgotten the days when you were the CEO. Maybe you'll still have a small part of something that's huge. But who wouldn't want a small part of something that's huge? I'd much rather have that than 100% of nothing. I've got 100% of nothing now. This is what it looks like where I come from. Stage pre-seed funding, proof of concept business planning going on. The money generally comes from the people concerned. Maybe they take out a mortgage on property that they own, or maybe they borrow money from their dad or something like that. This is the founders. It's those 3 F's again, the friends, family, fools, anybody that you can find. And fairly small amount of money just to get going, usually under about 50,000. In New Zealand we find that angels kick in around that time, and as the company is building, producing prototypes, turning technology into product, might be my phone disturbing the microphone. Turning technology into products, technological development, sales and marketing, getting that underway, understanding the market and producing a product which the market wants. Remember that market pull is absolutely crucial. You might well have a good technology that you think other people should take notice of, but there has to be a desire on the part of the market for it. It's always market pull, it's never technology push, and it's very difficult for technical geniuses to understand that. And the sort of money that in New Zealand that we're looking for is sort of 50,000, maybe that's an angel or maybe a couple of angels investing together. Up to anywhere really. I've put 5 million here, but it could be anywhere. These are not watertight divides, believe me. These are not. Venture capitalists do quite a lot of work on your company before they invest, so obviously they want to invest a significant amount of money because they don't want to do all that work just to invest a tin pot little bit of money and therefore only get a small return. They want to see market strategy, they want to see offshore development, certainly that's true in New Zealand, and we say generally that they're looking to invest in excess of $5 million, but they will sometimes invest less than that to start with, but they'll be looking to make maybe subsequent investments further down the track, and maybe co-invest with other VCs. VCs often work in tandem with one another. So these are not watertight, but by and large, you start with your own resources, you look for angels, those high net worth individuals who really want to interfere in what you're doing because they like you and they like your company, and then you're looking at people investing seriously other people's money, looking for a significant return. That's the sort of pattern that we've got. And by and large, business incubation takes us up to here. When a VC gets involved in our companies, the incubator lets go. There's not really very much that an incubator can do, in our experience, when a company gets venture capital. If a VC is going to put several $1 million into a company, they're going to want to control that company. The incubator can do pretty small amount really in terms of influencing what goes on. And it's right that we hand over at that point. So incubation finishes for us here. And we look to take people in with a good idea and maybe not much else. Good technical ability, maybe a bit of business nous, maybe not very much. And to grow that, we're talking about growing that within 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 at a stretch. So that a VC will look kindly on that company and want to invest. And that's when we look to let go. So what we're looking to do is to grow someone with a good idea to a point where a VC will want to invest. And that's our mission. And we try and do that within 2 or 3 years. And we've got some track record of being able to do that in New Zealand. Post-incubation, they go off. We try and keep in touch with them. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And then the sky's the limit. And of course, over here, there's all sorts of other things the VC will be wanting to get out, trade sale or IPO, whatever, further down the track. And the entrepreneur is generally owning less and less of the company. Your shareholding will be constantly diluted, but you needn't worry, because as the company is diluted, the company's value is growing very, very quickly. So you'll be able to buy one of the Cayman Islands for yourself at some point along here, when maybe you own just a small amount. We've got a microphone.
Do you normally act as a business angel yourself?
No.
As an incubator?
No, we don't. We don't invest at all financially in our companies. We invest in kind.
Do you see any benefit of necessity to do that in certain situations?
I think there could be a cause to do that. I think there could be a conflict of interest if we invested. Maybe it would change the way that we behave towards our companies if we actually put money into them. We do put, of course, a lot into the companies, and we do take a very small equity share in return for that. We do that, but it is all in kind. I work for a university. My technology park is owned by a university in New Zealand, and we're not actually allowed to put money in. So it's just not part of our equation. But it can happen elsewhere. What we do have is a range of investors in a network that we present our companies to. So we prepare our companies, we rehearse them, we get them to practice their elevator pitch, to articulate their value proposition, to define their product, to understand their markets. We prepare them for all of that. We then put them in front of investors who know that we are a source of young startup, good quality companies, and know that we'll have done our homework, and we hope that the investors will invest. But it's quite distant from us, and sometimes they don't, and we're as sad about it as the company is. And sometimes they do, and we're slightly surprised.
from the university's point of view, our biggest problem is finding funding in this very early stage, because that's very high risk for any investor that's coming in down here, and certainly VCs in New Zealand are very loath to come at this end of the spectrum to invest. But in saying that, we have in the last 6 to 8 months, a couple of the VC companies in New Zealand have set up funds, one for 10 million specifically for Canberra University, and University of Auckland is also looking at a $25 million fund from VCs that will invest in this very early stage, very high risk area. So from the university perspective, this is where we have a real problem in finding funding for our technologies. But like I said, it is changing, and it has been changing the last 6 to 8 months in New Zealand.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, one of the features that we do come across is that there's quite a lot of money out there looking for a home. It's not going to go anywhere, but it is looking for a home, and that's why we find VCs actually investing a little bit earlier than they used to, maybe with slightly smaller amounts of money, because there is quite a lot of money out there in the world, and people looking to get a return on it. The market for capital is just a market like any other. So imagine that if you've got difficulties in raising capital, think about it as a market. That's exactly what it is. It's governed by supply and demand. No investor is going to be totally stupid. They won't keep their money for very long if they are. But understand that supply and demand works. This is a quote from a VC who recently visited us from America. He said, "Investment becomes possible when greed exceeds risk," and he said that with a smile on his face. What he was saying was that investors know that there's risk, but they want a return. And if they think that the return is looking good and the risk is not too bad, that's when they will invest. So you need to, as a company, you need to be sure that you have thought about what risk you pose to your investor, and you're prepared to work with them to minimise that. An incubator can help its companies, and I've already said this, I think, by preparing companies for investment readiness, ensuring that the company structure's in good shape. Management and governance need to be clear. You need to have good governance and good management. Investors, of course, invest in people, and management is always crucial. Who's running the company? Ensure that the work on intellectual property has been done. Ensure that you've done your market homework. Ensure that you've got financial projections and you can justify why you've done them. They might well be torn up in 6 months' time, but at the time it wasn't just wet finger in the air material. It was actually based on something. Make sure that your product development is of good quality. Help the company to define and articulate its value proposition and prepare the company for pitching. Pitching's the elevator stuff where you just have a very short time to articulate clearly as to why you might be worth a second look. So investors are looking for these things. People. Who's running the company? Are they going to invest in you as people? What's the product? Where's the market? Is there IP? Is it protected? Does it have freedom to operate? What is the business opportunity? That's what they're investing in. What is the plan for the company to turn product into money? How will it be done? How long will it take? Be able to be prepared for those questions. If you can't answer them, don't make it up, because they'll soon find out. So if you don't know the answer to a question, be honest. How much money is needed and for what? We've covered that. They're looking for innovative technology. If you're going to have a good high return, there's likely to be innovation behind it, not a me-also product. Looking for IP, they're looking for technology that can become product. Market pull, I've spoken about. The company's track record, be able to show what you've done, even if you're a new company. Have a paper trail, show who you've contacted, what you've done, what avenues you've pursued. Show that you're of good quality and of integrity. The ability of the company to provide a good return on investment and an exit strategy. So, this is the final slide. Growth is the key to survival. If your company is going to survive, if it's a technology company, it's going to grow, because you're not growing rice, you're not producing milk, you're not got a commodity. So growth is the only way that you're going to survive. High growth means accessing offshore markets, and to do that requires investment. there any comments or questions, because that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
I noticed that you actually place greater emphasis on soft skills rather than technology skills. Is there a rationale for that, or?
That's our experience. That's our experience in New Zealand. That we don't find technology skills difficult to come by. By and large, the entrepreneurs come with those, and we have some very clever people. And it can be bought. We find that if they don't have the necessary skills, we can buy, beg, borrow good quality technical skills from elsewhere. We find the soft skills the more difficult things. So maybe that's why I've labelled it.
Do you have any kind of statistics on the success rate of your incubation program?
I do, but I haven't put them in this presentation. Sorry. One of the things I was clear I wasn't going to do was simply tell you what we do, because I didn't want to do that, because I wanted it to be a bit more analytical and not too descriptive.
Let's say, just for the sake of case study.
Yeah, okay. We are incubators in New Zealand. Have been running for 5 years. We've currently got only 14 incubators in the whole of New Zealand. So this is very small. And we have, over the last 5 years, produced 27 high growth companies between us. Now, we've produced far, far more really good companies, but we're talking about high growth companies. These are companies with some kind of breakthrough technology who are accessing offshore markets, who are getting significant rounds of increased VC and public equity funding. Right. We haven't yet had an incubated company that's done an IPO, interestingly, though we thought that some might. So as an industry in New Zealand, we've produced 27 high-growth companies. We've only been going 5 years, and remember, it takes us a while, so we didn't really exit any significant companies for the first 3 years. My incubator has exited, in the last 5 years, 9 high-growth companies and about 25 really good, successful companies who haven't quite made what we call high-growth targets, but nevertheless have produced a nice set of companies. It's a bit difficult to tell, because in fact we've got 2 companies who we exited as non-high growth because they didn't get some VC, or they didn't double their full-time employees after so many years and all that sort of thing. But since leaving us, they've actually taken off. So sometimes, remember, that life cycle can be a little bit delayed, and you think they're doing okay, but they're never going to be magnificent. And then when they leave you 2 years later, they actually start to do really well, and it's just been a delayed start. So we're still learning that, and that's lovely to see. I just wish that we counted them in our stats when we had them.
When you said there are 27 micro companies, but none of them have gone IPO yet.
That's right. That's correct.
Do you expect that to happen?
Oh, it will. It is going to happen. And I keep every year I keep thinking it's about to happen, because I'm looking at who those companies are. But there are a number of reasons why that doesn't happen, and that doesn't matter to us. The point is that they're growing in worth, that they're employing people, that they're making money. Yeah.
What kind of VC do you mostly in contact with? It means they invest in what kind of industry or business?
New Zealand, our VCs are usually interested in 2 things. They're interested in biotechnology, and that's very big in New Zealand and growing, and it's the flavour of the month. And the other thing that they're invested in is investing, and that includes all the sort of raft of agricultural sciences, new product lines, new crop lines, disease-resistant crops, that sort of thing, and veterinary and equine sciences as well. horses and animals and all sorts are really important to our economy. And the other thing that they invest in, we used to call ICT, but information and communications technology, but it's expanded a bit to include medical devices. In fact, the reality is that all dry technologies with intellectual property include some form of information and communications technology, so that phrase is kind of getting a bit out of date now. But by and large, they're the two things that our VCs are investing in. They're not the only sort of companies that incubate. We also have fashion incubators, designing clothes, and of course, you can be a high-growth company with a good brand if you're a clothes designer. We can all name a few. We'll probably all occasionally like to look in the shop window at a label if we can't afford to buy the stuff ourselves. But VCs, I haven't seen any VCs in New Zealand invest in fashion yet.
So most of your VCs is from New Zealand itself, right? Not
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. The VCs here could talk for themselves, but we find that VCs like to be close to their investment so they can watch it. So they might well have money from offshore. We have got one example of a VC from Singapore who invested in one of our companies, but there were reasons for that and mechanisms in place so that they could watch their investment. But by and large, VCs like to keep an eye on what's happening to their money, and one of the ways of doing that is to be physically close. So to get investment from offshore is difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And if you go offshore looking for investment, the first question you'll be asked is, why can't you raise it at home? There might be a good answer to that, but you will be asked it.
I heard one case about King Software that get taken over last year.
Yes, that's correct.
That is a good deal. Can you tell me?
I don't know the details of Peace Software. Brian Peace was a graduate of the University of Auckland who developed the company. It wasn't an incubated company. It didn't go through a business incubator, but he has recently sold the company for an undisclosed amount, but there are various prices knocking around and speculative newspaper reports. But I think it's just an example of a high-growth technology company that's done extremely well, and I think he now lives in America.
And that VC is come from somewhere else, right? New Zealand.
I don't know. Do you know the details, Kevin? Pete? We need advance notice of a question like that, sorry.
Because a lot of large amount deals that I heard that successful VC case, even in Thailand, I heard it's from foreign country VCs. I never heard any Thai company that have very big large sum of money VC yet. So that's why we are interested. Is there any potential to go further in terms of bigger amount of VCs?
There might well be, but just look at it from there are investors here. They can probably answer that better than I can. But let them answer that.
Can you repeat the questions again? Why are not Thai VCs investing in Thai companies?
Most of the deals that I've heard that it's really big deals in VCs not happen in Thailand. Basically, the amount that VC in Thailand got is not as much as.
Of course, I agree with you because Thailand economy is quite small, right? And VC industry in Thailand is quite new. Okay, so the difficulty in running a VC company here is to raise the fund. So I think most of the VC companies they like ourselves to use our own money, and there is another part where we join invest with other. But because of that constraints, you will not see a big amount of money by Thai VCs. Of course, you may see some investment by big corporates, okay, but they may not do in a VC aspect. They may do it to expand their product lines or diversification or something. And 20 years, the VC industry in Thailand, I think it started in 1980 something. Okay, pretty young, right? And the players here in Thailand mainly are those from multinational VCs like HMQ or Japan Asia Investment or Nomura Javco, okay, Straight Streets or something like that. So those people, okay, they if you follow the news, you will see that they have invested in many companies during the 1980s and 1990s. Okay, some get burned, that make a lot of money. Okay, but those are mainly multinational ones. I think the Thai VC. I think at the moment there are very few numbers like ourselves or I think the BBI. That's another VC company. I'm not sure whether Dragon One you name yourself as VC or not. Okay, maybe become the new player in the future. And the other are those funds that managed by government or sponsored by government, like the 1 billion baht fund, SME venture capital fund that managed by an asset management company, okay, or another few billion baht fund that managed by the Office of SME Promotion. Another VC is like a company named Stan, which is a joint venture between I think Mahidol University and National Innovation Agency, something like that. So to answer your question in brief, I think VC in Thailand are poorer than others, so they invest in lesser amount of money.
Would you just stop?
Thank you, Jonathan. I wish everybody enjoy our session. So after that, we will have 10 minutes for refreshment, and we will come up with the highlight of the workshop today. So each company will split out. So we divide into 5 groups with actually somehow we got the privilege from the CEO and the advisor from Incubation Center. So one executive will be with 4 or 5 incubators. So I think you will enjoy after that. So when you come up with this room, so we post your name and your company on the board. So you can check it out which group, so you can see down to the table. And when you go out from this room, the refreshment is on your right hand side on the corner. Okay, thank you.